Welcome to Threads of Enlightenment, a podcast devoted to helping you overcome challenges in your life that prevent you from becoming the best version of yourself. Each episode features interviews with people from all walks of life about their journey of self-development and the principles they utilize to overcome their fears to achieve their desired outcome. Ready to be enlightened? Here's your host, Ken Primus.
The chance to welcome our guests because I know that they're coming with a couple of things I deem very expensive. Their time. What a precious commodity, 24 hours given to every man and woman. Now, how you respect and honor time is going to tell me a lot about you, man. It's going to expose your sins, as they say. The other is the journey. The journey is a powerful creator. It has created Jeremy, and he's here. And I want to welcome the audience. Put on your listening cap because we're about to embark on a journey so that we can delve into wisdom, insights, and knowledge that he has gained through his journey so that you and I can become better human spirits while we are walking and occupying this place that they call Earth. Jeremy, thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment.
Man, it's great to be here. Great to be here.
I'm excited, man. As I said to you, the question that I ask is, how do you serve mankind? And Jeremy, I ask that so that the listeners can begin to look inside, to begin to understand that this is not just about them alone. It is about the others, the interdependent journey. How do you serve mankind?
I feel like I serve mankind, humanity, through my passion for passion. I feel like I have been taking this substance that is kind of defined either as like a volatile emotion or even on the religious end, a form of suffering, and studying it from a fresh perspective that kind of treats it more as a fuel behind our energy, or a fuel of our energy.
Yeah.
And that has taken me into what I call my soul's work, and that's what I feel I'm bringing to mankind, as you ask.
That is awesome. I know in reading some of the religious texts in the Bible, I remember it says that tribulation works patience, makes us grow, Jeremy.
Yes.
And I believe the darkness is necessary to awake and suffering. And the darkness comes through suffering, that is necessary to awake the creator that resides in us, that is dormant because we haven't allowed that creator to stand up and begin and have a voice. So one of our custom here, Jeremy, is to jump into this time machine that they tell us is called memory, man. And we
Yes.
go back into a couple of spaces. One of those spaces that we just hang out there for a couple of years is that family. And this
Yes.
family, you are going to be introduced to a bunch of strangers that call themselves mom and dad, and they see the world through their perspective.
Yeah.
And you have some siblings and stuff like that also in this mix. And mom and dad is going to deposit data into you. This data is based on their traditions, family, food, religious background. All this data is going to be deposited into you. What was your family unit like?
Well, it's funny. I had a reaction there because I do not have any siblings. I am actually an only child, and I was raised culturally Jewish, but not a lot of deep emotional connection. I would end up being more agnostic after my bar mitzvah.
Yeah.
And small family, and they got divorced when I was 8 years old. So I kind of experienced that split early on, of kind of two different personalities when I was with either of them. And I would a normal upbringing, nothing horrible. Let's say
Yeah.
there was love as much as they could do. As far as like uh, being a highly sensitive child, and um, that the as you mentioned before we hopped on here, the superpowers that were there uh,
Yeah.
weren't necessarily fostered because I don't think they had the tools to be
Hmm.
able to see that. Um, but yeah, it was I would say a normal upbringing,
Yeah,
quote
I
unquote.
think, quote unquote, most people, and I was looking at the data a couple of years ago, I think they say 51%, 51 to 54% of the marriages end up in divorces and so forth.
Yes,
So
yes.
that data speaks to a tremendous amount of trauma being introduced in family, disturbance, insecurity, disturbance in the norms, all of those wonderful things, as they say. How did you handle all that stuff, Jeremy?
You know, I've always I think as far as the labels and the gifted underachiever label, I've always been known as intelligent. I had a strong intellect. I was a thinker, a dreamer of sorts.
Hmm.
So I was able to handle it through my fervor for efficiency.
Yeah,
But on the flip side of that was kind of like a not necessarily antisocial, but a invisibility and a not caring about social. I was in my own world.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
but through that, I was able to navigate the going to a different house every day and
yeah,
swapping weekends. And it was a chaotic schedule from, an
yeah.
outside perspective. I, in my own world, my efficiency and kind of more, I guess, what I would call, more robotic sense,
Hmm.
more
Yeah.
logic, while keeping the world at bay. Just it was, yeah, very focused in that sense.
Yeah, basically, you were triggered to be in your survival mode. And that's
Hmm.
usually the first space that we visit that will take us along our journey for a little while, until we
Yes.
begin to
Oh,
deal
exactly.
with those things that has caused us or triggered that survival mode behavior, if you will, because within that survival mode behavior, there's certain perceptions that we adapt that will become habits that will become our lifestyle and all those other things as you're moving through your life, Jeremy, all of this moving back and forth within this um, environment, mom and dad and all that stuff. What you mentioned, some of it as far as you saw yourself more is a terminology came to me was like invisible in the background, but one that is observing, one that is clinical in its approach and so forth. How did you relate to others outside while you're doing this type of um, thinking, standing in the background? When those that came close into your vicinity, how did you relate to them, if you will?
The As you say, the
Excuse me.
survival efficiencies there. I learned how to be a chameleon,
Yeah,
and later I would call it a people pleaser.
yeah,
So I didn't. I used my sensitivity and empathy and to not ruffle any feathers, to not
yeah.
you know say anything that would make them unpleased with me. Uh,
Hmm.
but I was very much able to mirror and mask the
Yeah.
who I needed to be in any given environment to stay invisible.
Yeah, it's a good skill to learn. Eventually, it will be utilized for the correct reasons, if you will. But when we are in it, um, we are using it as again. It's that way by which we survive. It's the way by which we are able to manage the pain. It is the way by which we our modus operandus, as they say,
Hmm.
and it will take us some time. And um, one of the things that I've learned, because I was like that as well,
Oh,
a people pleaser is one that doesn't want to ruffle any feathers, don't want to hurt anyone, just want every peace,
Yep.
and to the detriment of ourselves, we do that.
Yes.
And it has a tendency, if you will, to cause a tremendous amount of destruction within the self as we're moving through life, trying not to hurt anyone. So here you are, you're moving through, you're growing up, you are in this thing, you've learned to be the chameleon, as you stated, and you're moving through life. You're heading now into, let's say, heading to college. That
Yeah.
conversation with you, here's this young man. He's very empathetic. He sees some things. He's in tune with a few things. When you're looking forward into that direction, which field of study did you pick, Jeremy, and why did you pick it?
Well, I mean, never. I mean, I would say right after elementary school, because elementary school there was still a love for learning, and was having fun. But after elementary school, and I went to a public school, it felt like I was like forced to be chained to a desk.
Yeah,
And so I never really remembered my love of learning throughout my whole school school career.
yeah.
And so I ended up going to Chapman for business because I had my dad was sort of entrepreneur, and my grandfather was sort of an entrepreneur, so I felt the entrepreneurial spirit uh,
Mm-hmm.
deep in there in terms of, yeah, I didn't quite have the full vision yet, but I knew that I was, as you said, assignment. I knew I was meant for something
Yeah,
entrepreneurial because I don't quite fit in
yeah,
to society in that way. But yeah, so I went to business school, but I wasn't emotionally present uh,
yeah,
at all, and I was basically living to appease others.
yeah.
And then it was like, just graduate college and then you can start your life, sort of mindset, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it.
Yeah.
I was, and I tell people I was 35, I think. 35. I had my four sons, and I was. That's when Ken Primus came to his senses. That's when I became a man. That's when I became
Wow.
Ken Primus.
After your four
Until,
kids?
yeah, after all of that, I was still a grown man living, Jeremy, to try to please my mom and dad.
Uh-huh.
And I realized we had a situation that arose within the family with my children, and that sparked my independence, if you will, from them, because I had to stand up to them and say no. And that was something I couldn't imagine doing. But when they crossed that line, especially with my children, that was
Yes.
something that had to be done. And
Yeah.
in doing that, I realized that, wait a minute, I have just given birth to myself at 34, man. So,
Wow.
yeah, it's a powerful thing when we are that people pleaser. It's a powerful force that hangs on, if you will, and we will still have to deal with it all the days of our lives while we're here. But we have learned to manage, we have learned not to allow it to punish us to the degree that it did before. We've learned how we've developed boundaries. We've learned all those other tools that we bring into space. So here you are, you're in business school, you're just doing the motions, man, just trying to get the hell out. I'm like, hey, let me get
Yep.
out. So you're out. You're now pursuing you, if you will,
Yes.
as far as putting your life together. And we
Yeah.
talked a little about the normal thing. And I keep telling you, you didn't feel like you fit in because you didn't feel like you were normal like the other people. It's that
Uh-huh.
invisible fence by which they control all those other people. And the people that are outside of that fence, they
Yeah.
usually awaken their entrepreneurial, they see themselves can't fit into the system, they can't do the, and so they are now going to embark and create their world. What
Yeah.
was your world like in the beginning of your creation of it in the realm of the professional?
Well, in the realm of professional, I love that. Um, going back to how I guess intelligent I was, like I was able to, after high school, actually get an opportunity to work at SpaceX
Hmm.
back in like 2006,
And did you
and
buy stocks? Did you buy stock,
I
Jeremy?
was I was rewarded stock. Exactly. Yeah,
Excellent.
I earned it. But and this goes to the lack of presence in either of those worlds, because I was working part time at SpaceX while I was going to college,
Yeah.
um, and then so after college, I was still working there. Um, but that's when I took the kind of first steps of, as you're calling, the personal development. Who am I? Just trying to understand the chaos, and I always like to refer to it as a monorail, a
Yeah.
monorail with blinders, and then finally stopping it and being like, oh, I get to make my own choice.
Yeah.
There's a lot of options right now. There's a lot of possibilities that I've never given myself the opportunity to look at. Like, what do I want to do? I have
Yeah.
no idea. So it was around that time that I started to dive in on myself. I did a little therapy, started to read books, self help, philosophy, spiritual. Like I was finally coming up against spirituality because I had no uh,
Hmm.
emotional connection to God, or uh, I didn't know what spirit was. I mean, I didn't even know, because I was coming from it from the intellect, and there's no emotion there to be
Yeah.
like, do I have a soul? Like I didn't even know what that was,
Yeah.
and so I started to dive in on all that. Started to do more writing,
Hmm.
and that's kind of the kickoff.
Yeah. What circumstances brought you there? What was it that caused you to say, wait a minute, I need to go beyond the natural realm that I'm used to? What
Yeah.
was those circumstances that ushered you
Mm.
into that space of looking deeper at yourself?
I would say two things. One is the space itself,
Hmm.
uh, because through college there was no space
Yeah.
uh, to do that, no space or time
Yeah.
to feel like I could do that. So that's one thing, was the opportunity that there was space provided that I could use.
Yeah.
The other, I would say, was the wide negative worldview that
Yeah.
I was kind of at the edge of not preferring anymore. Uh,
Yeah.
I was very much associated in that skepticism, cynicism, pessimism to life, and it just wasn't jiving anymore. It wasn't entertaining me anymore like it used to, and
Yeah.
that's so coming up against those walls of a negative worldview that I wanted to evolve and change. That kind of was the edge.
At that space right there, Jeremy, what did you say to yourself in order to begin the exploration, if you will, looking into the space of personal development? You had to say it because I tell people that space right there, Jeremy, is when the creator in you is about to make a decision. He's the one that is going to make the decision that this is not where I need to be.
Yes.
What did you say to yourself? Because that is important that I like to excavate from our conversation.
You know, when you ask that, I'm going way back, and you know what pops up
Yeah.
was a mantra that my therapist gave me, actually.
Hmm.
Uh, it was something of the sort of, you are a divine being of light, you live in the lightness of being.
Hmm.
And I didn't, there, again, I had no emotion to it,
Yeah.
but intellectually, I was like, okay, you see the brightness of it. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
I a very powerful light, a lot of distance,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of distance, and
Yeah.
very much arm's length. Cinematically, the picture was very attractive in terms of a power that I didn't feel that I had.
Yeah.
Uh, and then I would say the first book that opened up the puzzle uh,
Mm-hmm.
was The Power of Now by Eckhart
Yeah.
Tolle.
Excellent book. Yeah.
That illustrated I haven't been present.
Yeah.
I've been overthinking. I've been in the daydreaming. I've been in the past and the future, and and it's very difficult to be present. And that felt
Yep.
intellectually like a puzzle I wanted to solve
Yeah.
because the power was there, the power of that, and and so I think that set me off on the seeking missile
Yeah.
of I there's something to figure out here. I love puzzle. I love that, and it made
Yeah.
the game of evolution more alive for me.
Yeah.
To not necessarily destination, but yes, the fun of the journey too, because there was
Yeah.
an aim.
Well, that's where the passion was awakened.
Yeah,
And that's what this is about. And it's when that passion is awakened, it causes you to say things. It causes you to release words. It causes you to initiate actions that
yeah,
is going to bring to pass what you had just said. And that's why I asked that question, because it tends to crystallize some of the things that we go through. And then when we realize, when we say a situation like we could enough, and that inner man, the subconscious man, as they say, and not the intellectual guy, he began to stand up. And that standing up, Jeremy, of course, those listeners that there, you're not really going to stand up. You kind of start standing up. And this starting standing up takes years. And I tell people, you cannot be a McDonald's and Burger King mindset. You cannot bring that mindset into personal development. There's no such thing. You will get frustrated and you will leave and you will be burnt out and all those things. You have to become a disciple, if you will. You have to become disciplined to the process of personal development. It takes time. So here
yeah.
you are, Jeremy. You started the questioning, the light that is in that book. And I tell people books are powerful tools, are going to now jump from those pages, land right inside of you, and cause a reaction. Jeremy had mentioned that he started utilizing one of the most powerful tools already within his life, and that was writing. Journaling, writing, all those different things helps you to crystallize, get things out from you, and gives you an opportunity to grow. So, as you read that book, what other tools did it propelled you to begin to bring into your life to incorporate, so that you can assist yourself from moving from one space into the other, as you're saying, begin to embark on your personal development? What other tools did you bring in?
Are you asking like other than writing?
Yes.
Ooh, yeah, because writing was super strong. I guess the way that I could answer that would be the tools would. I, I'm going to have to go a little metaphysical here
Yeah, go ahead.
because the tool of scientist, the
Yeah.
tools of science, and what I was seeing as almost like a new pilot seat, a new
Mm-hmm.
helm that
Yeah.
I was brought to through personal development of
Yeah.
a pilot seat of my consciousness that put all these new buttons and levers and knobs and tools at my
Yeah.
disposal to
Yeah.
play with.
Yeah.
And and I say it on podcasts a lot, but I took a scalpel to my own
Mm-hmm.
consciousness and started messing around
Yeah.
with what doing this would change to this and how this made me feel, like all in a scientific discovery to try to understand the mechanics of the machinery that I was finally able to play with, that I was unconscious of before.
Rewiring your
And
brain, Jeremy, just rewiring your brain, looking at
exactly.
the whys and the reasons behind the whys. And
Yeah.
as you began to put that scalpel to it and the scalpel to it and began to cut and investigate, you then began to see the whys, the reasons that propelled you to do things. And when you started doing that, and looking at yourself within the space of personal development, what did you started to discover about Jeremy?
Boy, I mean, big realizations that came. I mean, the first, it's hard to recall order here
Yeah.
without looking at the books, but like the realization that I'm not just my body and not
Mm-hmm.
just my mind,
Yeah.
that's huge. That's a
Yeah.
huge one to almost detach from the the belief of physical identification,
Yeah.
uh, to loosen
Hard
that grip,
lesson. Yeah.
and then to also do that from a mind. I'm not even to shift identification,
Yeah.
uh, or at least feel the flip flop. That's an eye opener.
Yeah.
Other realizations. I
Well,
mean,
because this young kid had suffered trauma as a result of mom and dad's perception of life and each other. And
yeah.
he was affected by some decisions that were made outside of his world, but yet it was able to go into him and do some damage, if you will.
Mm.
What was some of those things that you found dealing with mom and dad? Were you resentful? Were you within the intellectual, or you just saw them actually just basically, as you said, emotionless, intellectual folks that were just there within your space, but never really, um, you know, was never really there. Some
Hmm.
people get to that level um, because they tune out from their bodies, Jeremy, and never visited themselves within that frame, and they
Hmm.
don't know anything. So
Hmm.
that's why I'd asked that question was what was some of those things? Because this young man had gone through some pain. What were some of those resentments, whatever the names that we give them, did you discover within yourself that you needed to sit down and have a conversation with and says, hey, we need to talk?
Hmm. There was a journey of first, like, learning how to have emotions,
Yeah, yeah,
uh, because that suppression or repression disassociated me from love itself.
yeah,
So I felt, you know, in terms of the order of approaching some of those things was, uh, big picture. I needed to, like, I know, like, the cliche, like, what is love,
yeah,
uh,
yeah,
first, uh,
yeah.
because once I started to give myself the allowance to have emotions,
Mm-hmm.
then I was able to kind of practice more of that independence that
Yeah,
you were mentioning,
yeah,
because it wasn't necessarily like that order was, you know facing those traumas and starting new conversations with them or anything like that. It
yeah,
was more, I would say, through my experimentation of independence,
Mm-hmm.
and thinking for myself, and going down experiences of different trials and tests and experiments and research, comfort zone of our relationships got challenged.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's when things started to get a little bit more fiery. First, more as a rift.
Mm-hmm.
They felt it as like I was getting further and away because I wasn't pleasing them. I wasn't
Yeah.
being who
Yeah.
I used to be.
Yeah.
Uh, so it was like almost like there was a rift first as I
Mm-hmm.
was doing the personal development, that because I was distancing and going in
Yeah.
my independence and not being puppeted by them in any
Yeah.
way
Mm-hmm.
anymore. Then I came back around to address the rift, and finally opened up the communication
Yeah.
to uh, be on a wavelength of love with them, and so there
Yeah.
wasn't a lot of resentment at that point. It was forgiveness,
Yes.
was just coming together and understanding, and the compassion to see each other's perspective, and find that common family bond again, and but in a much more clean way, and I think that was the way that I healed, was that
Yeah.
I had to go on my own.
Yeah.
They took that, in their hurtful way,
Yeah.
but then we've come back around, and the love is there. I hope
Yeah, it's
that.
the same process that I had to go through with my parents because based on the action that I took, it caused a fraction within that relationship, and we separated for a season, as they say, and eventually we came back, and it was a healthier relationship because I'd learned certain things. I'd learned about boundaries. I'd learned a couple of things that helped me to have more of an adult relationship with them than someone that was trying to please them. So I
Yeah,
became, as I said, I was separated from them where I gave birth to Ken Primus,
yeah.
um, me, and as a result of that, we maintain a really good relationship. So here you are, Jeremy. You've gone through this and you have been clinical in your approach, if you will, scientific,
Yep.
as you put it. And as a scientist has to go through, collect data, and begin to develop all these different theses as they are putting this stuff together. As you began to incorporate all this data from your study and from experimenting within life, going through those tests, as you say, what
Yes.
were some of those patterns that you started to witness that was right there with you all the time? Some of those patterns that you were able to grab onto?
Wow, that is a big question. Patterns.
Because as a scientist, you're looking at
Yeah,
this bunch of stuff that is all over there, and you're just
yeah.
bringing it into your space and deciphering it and
Oh,
getting a deeper understanding of it. And then you start noticing
you know,
these little things that all of a sudden, when they may be little pieces here, but when you put it together, like, my God, this makes absolute sense, you know,
yeah.
and you began to create
If
your own personal thesis, if you will.
right, if I can, I'm going to take a different angle to this,
Yeah.
because what's making me laugh in retrospect at how I'm going to answer this is because I'm not. I could say this is science, but I'm also, it could be something else. But it, there, I wouldn't, in where I'm dropping the record right now, I wouldn't call
Hmm.
it pattern detection,
Yeah.
because it was almost more closer to chaos, and the need to clean and
Hmm.
organize.
Yeah.
That was what took a lot of energy and time
Mm-hmm.
to do, and that was a core component of my work,
Yeah.
and research in scientific research in of itself was okay. I could barely sit down for 5 minutes to meditate
Mm-hmm.
because of how loud and noisy and sensitive the inner climate was. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's almost like I'm, as a scientist or an artist, I can't stand the messy workspace. I can't do any work in here. So
Yeah.
the first step was, okay, I need to clean this area up because I
Mm-hmm.
can't do work in here. So
Yeah.
that was the space was, okay, how do I organize all this activity, all these thoughts, all these patterns? I need an organization system. I
Yeah.
need I need a little bit of order here to label and see where things are, and everything has a place first, so then I could do my work. But that
Yeah.
was the work, right?
Yeah.
uh, and so that's where I would say whatever patterns came up, those are put in the patterns section. Okay, those
Yeah.
are there. I have those. And then it's like putting everything in the piles so then I can more effectively
Move
create
through
with.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so here you are as you began to put everything in its place, if you will. How did it come about for you to like start? Because we know you are a writer. How did you begin to start taking all those things that are in their place and beginning to put it into a format that you can, if you will, feed someone?
A lot of writing. So a lot of stream of consciousness, curiosity, wonder, and mechanics. Mechanics were my thing because I would, sit at a blank page, and the first, you know, writer's block thing is, I've nothing's coming up. The anxiety of a blank page. But then, as as it was allowed, the experimentation and the stream started to come, I was very much attracted to the inner workings of these things that aren't taught uh,
Yeah.
at all. And I would deep dive into, or deep dive, or high big picture view, different perceptions on
Yeah. Yeah.
things in there, and diagrams and charts, and just the way things are connected, and mind
Yeah.
map ideas and concepts that were the big picture, almost like if you're gonna work on cars,
Mm-hmm.
and you're looking at the engine, you need to kind of understand why the components are all there in the first place
Yeah.
to understand how a whole engine works.
Yeah.
So I was picking apart all the components of my mind, imagination, philosophies, spirituality terms, spirit,
Mm-hmm.
soul, God, and just seeing where they were, and taking out a spark plug and like, oh, that looks
Yeah.
cool, like that has the shape, and drawing the shape. And fast forward, what I was really after kind of came from the premise of, if I were to go back to my 8-year-old self
Mm-hmm.
and hand him a manual for how to use your mind instead of being abused by your mind,
Mm-hmm.
that's that's what I would have given
Yeah.
uh in the how to, in the manual for imagination, like how to
Yeah.
use it, because I didn't know how. It was using me.
Yeah. It's one of the most powerful tools that we can utilize.
Mm-hmm.
And because when we can um, bring it into that space, then we can begin to decipher things. We can begin to bring it into the real world, if you will. Because as we see it and imagine it, it is possible. We then now have to put it all together, because you look at anything, I tell people, everything begins there. The
Yeah.
chair started, the computer, everything in life starts there. And then we put into place a plan, as they say, the process by which we are going to bring that imagination, or put some clothes on it, if you will. And so here you are putting all the pieces, you're finding everything, and you got your little manual that you would give to yourself, give to your little self. Talk to us, Jeremy, when you start taking all of that knowledge, that information, and looking at others and begin to reach to them, to begin to assist them to move through their complexity of thinking, their limitedness in their perception of who they are, all of those things as you learned about yourself and so forth from your journey. Talk to us as to one of your first ones. Let's go to one of your first ones, because that's always the fun part, when you began to engage with others, if you can remember that. And what was it like, and what happened to that individual when they began to, that light bulb begins to get brighter, if you will?
Yeah. So it was an individual who, because I luckily enough didn't have to, face this, but it was an individual who was, I think you actually mentioned it earlier, in the corporate
Yeah,
programming, and so she was, uh, finance or accounting or some career, uh, where she was incredibly dissatisfied and unfulfilled with that, the golden handcuffs of having,
yeah,
that whatever that provides in the lifestyle, and especially for her the green card, or the way she was a citizen, was through this company.
yeah,
And so she hired me, and we worked together, and I supported her to face the monster that was to her,
yeah,
and to find the agency, the courage, and the freedom to envision a world lifestyle, uh, that she actually wanted, not for the survival
yeah,
purposes. And with that came a whole host of fears that needed love
yeah,
to overcome. And through our time, refined, she healed and refined her ability to claim it. And
yeah,
so she did depart. And fast forward today, she's living in Colombia. She just got married, and she's living um, the lifestyle that she was dreaming of.
yeah.
And it's very cool to look back and see that I played a little small part in helping her uh, discover herself like that.
And you guys that are listening to this conversation, as I mentioned to you, I invited you to come and learn. You heard that story, and I usually ask that so that the individual, our guest, would come and give us something that they remember, that we can see how, from being in their space, what it did to that individual, where she's now living that life that she's always dreamt about. And I have someone, guys, in Germany that can assist you to do that, because it's important when one is stuck to the programming of the designers that don't really care about you in a sense, but they are just holding you in this holding pen, to perform how they want you to perform, as they say. Jeremy stepped out of that with that entrepreneurial mind. There are different ways. And so he was able to move this individual from a fearful thinking process to one of liberty, where now she is in control of her life. And so I want to invite you guys to come and visit his space, because we're going to provide everything for him for you to get access to him. So Jeremy, here you are. You're able to see the what you have put in place to give birth to your people's igniting their passion. As you said, one of the things that you're excited about is passion. As you are looking at your life today, where you're at, what do you see?
Wow, what a simple and beautiful question. Thank you. There's a lot of emotion there for sure, because it's asking, to entertain as the memories of time and making the story of Jeremy Lasman up here. I see a discipline and a passion and a miraculous focus that has brought about through a lot of years of research and development, has birthed, co-founded a company a dream company, a company that I want to work. Like, it is a dream company that is carrying, that I have offloaded my soul's work out of me. That was a goal of why this company is being created. Was I knew this invention of imagination technology was much bigger than me, and it would not do its service for it to stay in here. And so this company is a way for me to get it out to the world and have the operational capacities to support and deliver this operating system to the world. And so what I see is the fruits of this labor to invent this and to bring this from the big picture, from my love of astronaut, outer spaceness, far off work, to land it, because it's taken a lot of time and work to bring it to life, and to be able to communicate was a huge struggle of mine, to communicate the vision. And so we're right at that, we're going to market now, and it's taken a lot to get here. And doing podcasts like this, where I get to actually speak from the heart, and I have the ability to be authentic in that fashion through this work, and the gratitude of the work that I get to do, the passion for the assignment that I was given, even though I, on a soul level, wanted the most difficult, artistic, scientific, like, I did not want it to be easy. But I'm in a time now where I see the fruits of that labor starting to be visible instead of invisible. And that visibility, because that's what am I seeing, but it's also what others are getting to see now that I've been so excited for them to see / scared, to be seen.
Part of it.
And that's where I feel like I am right now, is right on that edge of
manifestation.
Yeah. Great word for it.
Yeah, it is. I always tell people this thing, Jeremy. One gives birth to things that reside in them through the journey, and it changes, it morphs, it becomes crystallized at some point, and then when it's crystallized, because we have No, we are still learning about what it is, some of the things. We see little glimpse here and there and whatever. And then when it crystallized, we were able to give birth. And all of that beautiful mess is pain, joy, all of it mixed together. But it is, simply is. And because it is, there is certain power there. And so, guys, we are going to put together everything so that you can have access to Jeremy's invention and all these different things. Because one of the most powerful tools you'll ever engage with is the imagination. It is like one of the last stages that one stands within uh, without giving, close to giving birth. Because as you see it here, it is the process you'll put in place to make it a reality. It is what it is. It just is. So when you begin to activate your imagination, you will put it in place to activate your outcome of what you want. Jeremy, this has been a good one, man. Thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment, sir.
Oh, it's been such an honor. What a deep and powerful conversation. It was such a pleasure and so fun to jam with you, Ken.
Thank you so much, man.
Thanks for tuning in to Threads of Enlightenment with Ken Primus. Hopefully you're now feeling more empowered to overcome the challenges in your life, whatever they may be. Share that inspiration with others by telling them about this podcast, rating it, and of course, remember to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. For more connection, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram by searching for Threads of Enlightenment. Until next time, stay enlightened.